Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Forrest Scholl, president of the IEEE Computer Society, and I'm delighted to be able to welcome you to our webinar today on the 2021 Watts Humphrey Software Process Achievement Award winner. First, a little bit about the award. So Watts, as you may know if you know the figure, Watts was an important figure in our software engineering community, especially to those of us here at the Software Engineering Institute, where he provided inspirational leadership for a number of years. As you may know, Watts was awarded the National Medal of Technology for his impact, which came out as a result of his dedicating most of his career to improving the state of practice in software engineering, with a number of different methodologies and practices to his name, which have gotten out into the larger workforce. Based on that legacy, it's only fitting that we honor his achievements and his legacy by recognizing the efforts of others who have also improved the state of practice in software engineering through contributions that are significant, measured, sustained, and most importantly, shared with the communities, that the larger workforce can continue to benefit from the innovation and the thought that goes on in so many of our different environments. So with me today is our 2021 award winner, Rajendra Prasad, who goes by RP. RP is the global automation lead for Accenture. In this leadership role, using his more than 25 years of industry experience, RP focuses on driving the efficiency of technology services across the application lifecycle, as well as being part of his clients' journeys to stay relevant and competitive in our increasingly digital world. He created and leads the team that implements Accenture myWizard, an intelligent automation and end-to-end service delivery platform with artificial intelligence at its core. He has 23 approved patents to his credit and over 150 patents filed worldwide. He's an experienced conference speaker on automation and artificial intelligence, and is a published author of dozens of papers. He's also the co-author of the upcoming book, The Automation Advantage, will be coming out later this year. RP, it's a pleasure having you with us here today. Looking forward to hearing about your work. Before we get started on the presentation, though, one quick note, which is that after the presentation, we'll reserve some time for question and answer. So please put your questions into the chat. The questions will come to me and I'll help manage the flow at the end so we can have a little bit more interaction and hear some of RP's additional thoughts. But with that, really looking forward to your presentation, RP, so over to you.
Thank you, Forrest, and hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining the session today. We're going to talk about how automation is helping enterprises and organizations do technology transformation at speed and with business agility. So today, we'll touch upon why automation and why is it so critical for the organization to adopt automation, the software engineering, business automation, business process automation, enterprise automation, and what it means and how it impacts the enterprises in the overall schema of business and business challenges that they face. We'll also touch upon how and what are the ways to address implementing, adopting, driving automation at scale. And finally, we'll touch upon how we can measure and monitor the value that automation implementation helps organizations. There are three key objectives of driving automation in the organization. One is many enterprises adopt automation to drive competitive differentiation. What is a competitive differentiation? The most important thing is to generate and drive speed to market, deliver quality and predictability in the business performance, software development, IT systems, IT system delivery. The second biggest objective for automation is to drive application stability, reducing the technical debt, thereby impacting operational cost savings. Finally, improving operational efficiency. And then last but not least, the customer experience, user experience, and how shortened sales and service life cycle, business conversational agents implementation, self-service automation can help organizations to drive customer experience to the next level. So with these are the three fundamental drivers: competitive differentiation, operational cost efficiency, and customer experience. What has been the experience of driving automation in the enterprises? Many organizations adopt automation and analytics and artificial intelligence, AI. I call it as a 3A, automation, analytics, and AI. In the last few years, however, many enterprises approach automation as let's point in solution for a business challenge or in a business vertical within an enterprise, or a couple of automation tooling solutions that we have purchased. How do we implement them? And implementing data and analytics as a point in solution. However, to get best business outcome and holistic implementation of automation, automation has to be implemented at scale. And to drive automation across the enterprise, it's not within one business unit or within business organization, a point in solution. To get complete transformation business benefits, we have to drive automation at an enterprise level with full potential, like a change program. There are typical challenges that organizations face when they're adopting or driving automation. One is, over a period of time, IT systems, software systems that exist within the organization might have built technical debt. And there is increased technical debt. How do we address that part so that the systems are optimized and driven? Then, as the systems go from development, build, design, and test and deploy, production and operations support, how do we make sure that there is a very minimal production failure and what I call as a zero application support and human intervention that is required to make sure that the production failures are kept low? And then traditional delivery methods and architectures, that how do we make sure that it doesn't slow down the acceleration, speed to market, business specific, business centric applications to be developed. And as you go through the technology evolution, technology change, subject matter expertise, or what I call as the talent need, the dependency of the talent needs on driving large tech transformation and legacy environment to the modern environment of implementation, adoption of agile, DevOps, software engineering principles to address how we can reduce the overall software defects, keep the production disruption minimal. All of this are the main aspects of addressing automation challenge. The shift in what automation can help to drive, cost savings, efficiency coupled with speed. I call it as, speed, quality, cost paradigm has more importantly switched to how do I get cost efficiency along with speed. Speed has to be coupled with cost efficiency. Cost efficiency is important, but speed is very, very important. Where possible, how do we get holistic automation, end-to-end automation, enterprise-wide automation that can help to drive automation across the organization? Automation as an optional productivity booster versus business transformation lever. I don't want to have enterprises to adopt automation where possible, but it has to be infused, integrated into business transformation. Finally, AI is at the core of automation. Data, analytics, AI form core of automation. When we do automation implementation, when we adopt automation, like in software engineering, CMM and CMMI maturity model, automation, industrialization, institutionalization is a continuous journey. It is coupled with change management principles. It follows a maturity spectrum, like You start with building foundational elements of automation. A simple foundational element of automation can be a script-based automation that you start, simple point in solution and making sure that getting all of those automation elements and then defining automation processes that drive automation. Then you move to what industry call as robotic process automation, which is RPA, and adopting and accepting a tool that can help to drive automation. Once you get your foundational elements and robotic process automation, the next important step is transforming the enterprise to intelligent automation. How do we accomplish intelligent automation? Data is at the core. As Dr. Deming says, God we trust, rest all bring data. Data plays a significant role to drive intelligent automation. And AI, artificial intelligence, coupled with data strength of data, makes the enterprises to transform to intelligent automation. So this is a journey. You start with foundational automation, adopt robotic process automation, then you transform to intelligent automation. While you transform through this maturity journey of automation, you have to work in terms of reimagine your business models and process through automation. You have to look at your process optimization. You have to identify and establish, eliminate waste in the processes. The last thing we want to do is automate an inefficient process. Once you automate your inefficient process, your inefficiency is now running more efficient. So to address that, we had to make sure that get the process optimization, eliminate the waste, get the lean processes in place, and then drive the automation. Then transforming relationship between your humans and machines infusing AI. It is just not AI, automation, bots in the organization. It is always coupled with human plus machine relationship within the organization to drive the maturity journey. Finally, to unlock trapped efficiency and productivity through the value of analytics. I call it as data and analytics. AI is the UI of the data. It acts as the strength of the data and analysis that can provide you to refine business models, refine your process, strengthen human plus machine aspect within the organization, helps to transform between foundational automation, robotic process automation, intelligent process. How do we make automation work? What are the critical aspects? As what Humphrey says, right? You need to know where you are on the map to kind of get to the destination. It applies exactly the same way. You need to know where you are on the map with respect to automation journey. First thing that enterprises have to do is make sure that you baseline your current automation position, automation maturity, where you are with journey, and then starting the automation journey is very critical. Most of the organizations jump and say, okay, we purchased a tool, we purchased an utility, we have built automation center of excellence, and we want to get into automation and, need to understand the behaviors and the culture and the current position of the automation. So starting is very, very critical. I want to stress on that point. Making sure that you measure, baseline, understand where you are on automation process, very, very critical. The next important aspect of is automation can't fix a broken process. It is very, very important. As I said, you need to look at your processes and get the process optimization. Optimize your process, eradicate waste before you go into automation. So optimize, eradicate, then automate. Finally, your automation has to be coupled with business-led, business at the center of it, business accomplished, business goals. Technology can enable it, but business has to be at the center. So these three aspects are very important, and touch upon the change aspects, and the remaining three aspects that you see on the slide are change aspects, right? So start right, optimize, eradicate, automate, make technology enabled business at the center. Take automation beyond RPA. Most of the organizations talk about, the definition of automation is very critical. What is the scope of your organization's automation, that focus that you want to do? So making sure that just not focusing on robotic process automation or a business process automation or a software engineering automation or run ops automation or a DevOps automation. You need to kind of look at holistically and take the automation beyond our. Remember, like any technology, automation and the technology of automation continues to change. So it is very important, be agile, continuous focus on automation and making sure that it works, very critical. Finally, the critical part of making sure that your automation works within the implementation is the talent. There is a continuous evolution, change, reinvention, innovation that happens on automation. And you have to stay ahead and make sure that there is a talent focus. The way we do it is, you define an automation university as an example to make sure that the organization has very clearly defined talent. So these are the 6 important aspects of driving automation. Now we talked about the definition of RPA. We talked about the business challenges. We talked about holistic view of automation, getting the processes right, and then transforming enterprises to foundation to robotic process automation to leading edge of automation to intelligent automation, keeping the business at the core of it. I want to introduce how do we accomplish this, what I call as a 4S model, to drive automation through that maturity journey and address your challenges every aspect. Keep your automation solutions simple. I'll give you an example. When you start an automation journey, your enterprise has a tech landscape, technology landscape. It has an application landscape. It has utilities and the architectures within the organization, the process. It is like a running train. The enterprise is already moving forward. You have to add to the running train an automation journey has to be added to it. To do that, your architecture has to be very simply microservices based, API based. It can plug into the existing tooling ecosystem of solutions. And then it has to be seamless. It cannot be, business cannot be bring to a halt and then say, okay, now we'll start fresh automation. So it has to be integrated into the environment seamlessly. Once you make it simple, easy to adopt and integrate that seamlessly within the organization, then the next big thing is scaling it. And as I said, it cannot be one unit or one business, one entity or process. It has to be entire organization and scale. And we all know that the value and the benefits will get delivered when you sustain on a regular basis. Those of you who are familiar with CMMI, this is a continuous improvement, optimizing and constantly, moving forward with implementation. So simple, seamless, scalable, sustain is what is the 4S model is. Now I'll go a little bit deep dive into how you get through each of those aspects of simple, seamless, scale, and sustain. So when you start simply, you establish automation baseline maturity. How do you do that? You define scripts define process elements, you define an automation maturity assessment framework that you can apply. Look at applications, look at your infrastructure, look at your technology. They talked about technology depth within the organization. Look at your operational process. Look at modern engineering practices with respect to agile, DevOps, continuous integration, continuous deployment, containerization process. Even in your run-off space, look at observability aspects of automation. Now, look at everything that you need and baseline your knowing where you are on a map is very important, as what says. Next is you have to define a platform, a center of excellence, business processes, and automation first as a thinking within the organization and a culture. We'll touch upon a little bit more on change management and cultural aspects of automation as we move forward, right? And that's the seamless aspect of the process. Then scale and sustain, speed at which we can do. What is the most critical aspect of scalability? The culture element that we talked about in seamless, that is the important element to be able to scale and sustain. Business aligned IT automation. Make sure that business process automation, IT automation, enterprise-wide automation is aligned. And predictive and proactive automation. And involve the practitioners from the organization to do this. So you can use the tools and techniques like design thinking, tools and techniques like brainstorming, a holistic involvement of all of the resources within the organization is very important. Finally, innovation and business innovation, technology innovation, software delivery innovation, entire innovation element and staying ahead to make sure that it is a simple, seamless, scalable, and sustainable business model that exists as we go through the journey of automation. So the maturity journey coupled with 4S model can help you to implement automation at scale. I'm going to talk about now, switch the gear and talk about how do we make sure that change management, change aspect of adoption, sustain, industrialize, institutionalization is an important element of it. First thing is in the people aspect, we have to create and enable entire organization to talk about automation first mindset. There should not be any fear of automation impacting jobs. Because as I said, our equation is human plus machine. Automation and AI plus people go together. And the next important aspect is while encouraging automation, can we create a career path for all of the employees within the organization to drive automation as a passion? Important and recognize them. And it is not about automating and taking out the jobs. It is automating and freeing up the capacity, automating and making sure that we'll be able to drive next level of business transformation. Full stack automation, all of us know full stack engineering, software engineering skills. Similarly, in automation, we can creating from bots to data to analytics to change management, culture, architecting solution, and implementing. That aspect is full stack automation engineering. And processes is, we all know that process is very, very important. Mature, stable, optimization, eliminating the redundant steps with the process is very, very important. Then infusing agility and adaptiveness in the processes. Critical aspect of it is platform centric technology making sure that the automation architectures do not infuse in the non-intrusiveness of architecture. It's not monolithic. It is microservices based, APIs. And when you're putting automation solution, you have to look at forward thinking and making sure that the automation technology that we are putting in place is ready. And that's kind of what summarizes how we manage change. People, skill, expertise, career management, talent, full stack automation capability. Processes, process optimization, efficiency, agility, and adaptive nature. Architectures, solution of architecture. When remember, all the automation enablement at the end of the day is a software engineering and software solutions, right? System solutions. We have to make sure that all of the principles of software engineering and software principles apply to the environment. Next important aspect of measurement is key aspect, right? As I said, in God we trust all bring data. That is what Dr. Deming talks about. It's very, very important to drive change, impact of change through measurements, measuring it right. Defining measurements using GQM, goal question metric, or using techniques like balanced scorecard, and aligning measurements to the business outcomes. Defining value wallet is very important. Automation can impact, improve cycle time, increase the speed to market, decrease the cost of rework or fix software quality engineering in the test lifecycle. In the maintenance and run space, you can implement availability, increase the availability. You can also measure impact of creating automation talent and expertise, automation university on the outcomes of automation. So defining the KPIs and trying it out to adoption, the implementation is very, very. I'll give you a very, very simple tool to kind of measure your value wallet. Like when you deploy automation, you can create and ask your teams to credit the benefits of automation to the wallet. Then thereby you can give them the funds to define more innovative automation. By doing that, you can actually involve the entire organization to measure the value, manage the funds, get right implementation of adoption and change management within the organization. So how do we sustain and strengthen when we implement this, when we implement automation with the organization? Right? Depending upon your business and business vertical and business focus and the line of business that you are operating, define automation analytics, dashboards that can be reached to entire leadership team. Define a regular governance and cadence where the entire leadership can see the benefits of automation, just not on the systems and software, but also the business process outcome. A clearly well-defined governance and recognition mechanism of benefits of automation can take a long way to sustain the. Continue to do competitor analysis and analytics of your business line, the financial sector or healthcare, retail, whatever the sector you are operating. See how your continuous competition landscape to see what are the analytics talking about drive innovation there. Look at the market studies that are available to understand the trends of what's happening. You can ask, hackathons is one of the very important activity that you can perform. You can conduct, invite with the organization to think and infuse new thinking of automation with the employees. And it's a very powerful tool and it helps, and we've been used that many applications to scale or design thinking is a very important tool, just not identifying the new ideas, but also impacting culture and change and acceptance with the organization. Let me give you a very simple example on how a design thinking can help acceptance within the organization. So you can get all your employees into a room, write down the list of tasks that they perform every day, and then you can give them identify the tasks that they like and the tasks that they don't like it but have to do on a day-to-day basis. And you can tell them that the tasks that employees do not want to do on a day-to-day basis can be automated. Give that back as a challenge back to the employees to move in that direction. That gives a lot of acceptance from the employees. It's a very simple yet powerful tool that you can use to identify tasks that can be identified with an acceptance from the employees, leveraging design thinking technique. And you have to also run business plus technology innovation together, be it AI tech or deep learning tech, machine learning, or your clustering and classification. How does those techniques help identify business innovation? How can you provide data insights to the organizations to provide business technology innovation? The most important aspect of it is constant voice of the customer surveys, making sure that you are hearing from your customers, addressing what they are looking for in the automation solution. So these are some of the tips and techniques to sustain and strengthen automation while we are implementing business or technology transformation. Simply put, all your automation journey and then drive using 4S model. Simple, seamless, scalable, and sustainable automation as you drive automation journey in the organization. So remember that sustaining and institutionalizing and continuous innovation, forward-looking of automation is very important for the enterprises to stay in the start getting the benefits of automation. In addition, measuring quantitatively the benefits and defining a value framework and value validity. With that, I want to open it for any questions that you have participated.
Excellent. Thank you, Arp. That was a great talk. I think very timely in terms of some of the topics and things that it's on there. So we have a couple of good questions already in. Please, I'll ask the audience, remember that they can put in some additional ones in the chat. We want to make sure folks have the chance to have some interaction here and ask their questions. Keep them coming. In the meantime, I'll start off with one or two we have here already. I wonder, RP, one of the questions we had was to kind of make it a little bit more concrete, if you will. I wondered if what you've presented here is a general process that applies to all types of automation. I wonder if you've seen patterns about what types of processes are the ones that organizations typically get started with. If there's ideas for where you would get started with automation, in terms of what processes seem to be best suited, or is that very context?
It's a very good question, Horace. Most of the organizations, there are two aspects, right? One is the business automation, that is enterprise-wide adoption, and then the IT automation. Let me take example of business automation. When the processes are identified and optimized, address it through the automation, you have to look at what I call as impact of your applications or your business processes to the bottom line or the revenue. I call them as money making or money impacting application. So the prioritization of processes or applications or a software that needs to be taken up for automation directly links to what I call as the money making impact. So you look at a process and say, is this impacting significantly my organization's revenue, my organization's profitability? If so, then this process is very critical. Identifying the critical process and similarly critical application that impacts business outcomes, which is directly proportional to the revenue of the organization, is the step one. And then you need to look at that process optimized. What is the tendency that we need to avoid is that picking up a challenge and complex process to make sure that it is simplified takes time, takes investment. If we shy away from that, and if that is the most important process that impacts the business and business revenue, if we shy away from that, that will negatively impact. So it is very important to put that commitment to say these processes, these applications, this software, this IT solution impact my revenue by this percent, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. I am going to go and address, optimize that is the step one. So that's how I ask enterprises to approach that. And it depends upon, as you said, Forrest, the context which most of the organizations are. Is it a HR processes, procurement processes, supply chain processes, order to cash processes, finance processes? Which one of that you need to look at it depends upon what is the current state of process and how it impacts overall business.
Great. I was going to say, you've mentioned several times, I think, the idea of measurement, the importance of data. You're in my favorite persons list, cited that Deming quote, which I love. So I was curious, because what you've also talked about here in terms of automation is also a change management, organizational change along the workforce. So if I could put those two ideas together, say, from your point of view as the automator, what metrics and what data do you collect to make sure that you're on the right track? If you start with an automation and put some effort into that, how do you know that you're doing the right stuff? Is there something you monitor to say whether or not things are going the right way?
Very, very good question. And I'm going to go back to some of the metrics that I have on my presentation, right? If you look at these are the examples of measurements and metrics for software and IT systems, though. We can, except the last one, we can definitely apply talent and training impact to efficiency or business cost savings. That can be applied to business process automation, robotic process automation as well. Reducing the cost of rework, cost of poor quality within the software delivery lifecycle is an example of how do we optimize that using automation. That's a metric that you look at. Increase agility and velocity. Velocity is one of the metrics that software agile teams that track in terms of when they go from sprint to sprint, what is the velocity and what is the adaptability of each of the story points solution. That is a measurement as well. Application availability, stability, and the reduction of production incidents systems. That is an example for run ops and measurement and run ops space, application maintenance. These are the measurements for IT lens side. There are in the business process automation. When you can look at the bots impact to overall increase in the turnaround time, or the automation impact to implementing business processes at a high speed. And is the call volume increased, and could we address volume of the calls more effectively at a higher speed, leveraging automation? Has there been increased customer experience by moving from what I call as automated solution to guided automated solution? So this goes back to complete automation to human plus machine automation. Do we know exactly what is the volume of guided automation that is being implemented that increase the customer experience. So these are the different measurements and metrics. And the most important one is the amount of the dollar volume that is spent and the outcomes that are accomplished. You can measure that as well together. So again, talking to the business, talking to the systems organization or automation organization, then defining core measurement program to sustain this.
Thank you. Okay, we have actually two questions here. Let me take it in two different parts here, so we can focus on one at a time. So first, are there considerations that a small size organization think about as they research for adapting the approach?
Very, very good question. The smaller the organization, the lesser the amount of dollars that are available to implement huge innovation. So you have to kind of be very effective and efficient to take the dollar volume. In a smaller organization, smaller enterprises, what I suggest is look at the process optimization, the implementing something like CMMI or Six Sigma, ITIL processes, best practices, and getting your process efficient. Then pick and choose two mission critical business that needs to be automated, then implement that. Do not worry about technology innovation. Getting and identifying business processes is very important. Critical and mission critical business processes important. So the simple solution is look at your dollars that are available for innovation, implementation. Look at the business critical processes. Implement something like CMMI or ITIL or Six Sigma lean process. Then pick and choose automation solutions. When selecting the technology, evaluating technology or options, there are best in class, there is cost optimized technology solution. Look at what is affordable and then the solution. This is like a holistic view of how a small enterprises can approach automation.
And then the second part of the question, I think you touched on it a couple of times, but maybe we could take it a little bit further. How does this leverage industry best practices like CMMI, ITIL, etc.? Do you see those as, if I can extrapolate a little bit, do you see those as places to go to get suggestions for processes to do the automation of? Do you look at those as potential solutions? All the above?
Absolutely. In fact, I put the slide back where I had people, process, and technology aspect of it. As we all know, technology and technology solution is the easiest part of this, and people process is the most difficult one. And organizations that have gone through a process maturity and process discipline, leveraging one of those industry best practices and standards, they kind of know how to manage at a high maturity the enterprise discipline. If you look at the entire topic that I talked about today, has been the way we approach is to drive this through a maturity spectrum of automation. So you see there is a significant similarity. Like we do Scampi assessment in CMMI, I would want to baseline the current automation process and maturity, leveraging techniques like Scampi or any of the assessment techniques that we have before we drive the journey of automation. That's another similarity. And then at the maturity level 4 and 5, where we have quantitative data-driven process maturity, and then continuous improvement plays a role. It's exactly a similar way in automation. It is very important to look at data. UI, AI is the UI of data, and AI is a significant part of the automation solution within the organization. And then forward-looking architectures and making sure that there is a very seamless integration of architecture and technology changes, like in CMMI level 5, continuous implementation of continuous innovation to the organization is the synergy that can drive between industry best practices like CMM and ITIL and Six Sigma into the automation maturity framework that I talked.
Thank you. Actually, if we could go back to that slide that was just up, I think that's a great lead into our next question. Because at the top of the chart there, you had the part about people considerations.
Okay.
So the question here about, oh, there we go, the automation career path. So which I think is a great, by the way, it's a great idea. I'm very interested in how this impacts the workforce. So a concrete idea like that's pretty cool. You know, I think as we look at an automation career path, you could imagine this going in depth. And so you're understanding the technologies you're looking at, how to do the automation. How does that come up against the need to be an expert in those domains? You know, are these now separate people? Or are there teams that work together, you know, to provide that depth of automation versus breadth of domain knowledge? How does that make?
Brilliant question. So let me actually give you how, with examples, how we define automation career path as an example, right? There are two complementary skills. Automation solutions are all, at the end of the day, is a software and software developed solution. Like, you know, be it an AI application or be it a bot or be it an RPA utility that you write or a script. But the skill that is required is to make sure that you be able to do and write those automation solutions. We call that as an automation engineer at the bottom of the career pyramid. Then you become an architect. Then you go become an coach, and then you become an automation champion. So you can start with automation prime, automation architect, automation coach, and automation champion. For each of those career levels, right, there is a technical expertise required. Let's take an automation at the software engineer at the beginning, right? They need to know some scripting language, some utility and a tool as of like a RPA expertise around that. So that is automation, right? Then when you become security, you need automation architect, you need to know security architect, you need to know data architectures, you need to know application architect, and you need to be able to integrate automation architecture into the application. So that is the second level of career. And third one is ability to look at the entire organization and define and, you know, coach the enterprise to build an automation plan, establish university principles, change management principles around automation. That's the coach. At each level of this career pyramid, we will have some experience criteria, and then time that you need to spend, the volume of the experience that you need to before you move from prime to architect, coach, to champion, where you can perform end-to-end automation, and the skill required is full stack automation. So that's kind of how build that career path and career model with, I touched upon with examples and, you know, roles that you can define. That those are just sample role definition, but you can define the terms that help to define the career.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think one of the complications with any of these is that, as you said, the technology is changing all the time. I forget which slide it was, but you had a really nice illustration on one of these about, there we go. Oh, yeah, sorry, go back one. There we go.
Yep.
You know, which kind of talked about the need to continue to keep up to date, to continue looking at what competitors doing, what the market's doing, and make sure that the latest and greatest are all. The question that came in there was, how do you incentivize? How do you so, you know, you're talking about continuous automation innovation there. I mean, there's effort and resources that have to go into that. How do you incentivize that continuous process? It's always going to be going.
This is, you know, very important question. And as I said that, you know, the automation and the expertise of automation today in the field, in the software industry is the most, you know, most required, most shout skill, right? I usually tell that I have the best job in my organization, very visible, and that's kind of a big motivation, the recognition for me. And similarly, you know, if there is a commitment, there is a recognition for the automation and automation skills, and motivating them, and a constant reward and award program that you can find. And people want to be, an automation architect. People want to be an automation champion, right? We give those titles, and plus we have very simple reward mechanisms, right? If you submit a bot that generates an X amount of revenue, you be rewarded, you get a reward points that is considered in your performance evaluation. And if you become an architect, that's when a credit and a special weightage in the performance and talent discussions process in enterprise. And finally, if you want to become an automation champion or automation coach, the journey in itself is so important, and people are very motivated because they're considered as experts. They are considered as people who are required to kind of help enterprises to be transformed. So these are all very important recognition tooling, and to become to take them through the automation journey. And more importantly, if they invest and everyone become an automation champion coach, one of the days they can get what's Humphrey Award for implementing automation through their careers.
Excellent. Thank you for that, actually. And that's a reminder. I'll say it again at the end, but of course, we're always looking for additional nominations for the award. And we really love to be able to have these kind of success stories and call attention to the great going on in the field. So absolutely, I hope people are kind of thinking of themselves as potential Watts Humphrey Award winners based on some work. Let me ask, because I think that the previous question was a great lead into the next one. Again, you talked about incentivizing, talked about career paths for folks. I think that this one really gets to the idea of culture change. I think you mentioned this several times too, right? I mean, we're talking about introducing different ways of working, asking people to go down different journeys in terms of their career development skill sets. What other aspects come into play? I'm sure culture change is always hard. Are there other techniques that you've learned? Are there other practices that make the culture change more tractable?
Yeah, absolutely, Forrest. I think that let me talk about technology aspect, right? The full stack engineering and full stack software engineering skills are very, very critical for managing change, as well as able to drive automation adoption at the speed at which we need. That's a very important aspect of that. Then, like I said, the leadership team has to have a regular governance. The organization leaders have to constantly, continuously govern, benefits, the monitor changes that happen. Finally, the most important aspect is how do we reward, recognition, change, all of that is important, but how do we should not shy away from changing the direction. If there is a change in the technology, there is a change in the business priorities, re-optimize what has been already optimized, rewriting the process. That kind of commitment and forward looking is very, very important for the organization to sustain that.
Great, thank you. So I got the notification we have about a little bit less than 10 minutes left at this point, so that if folks have additional questions, I might have time for one or two more. I think we have one here. This, and we'll see if we get one more in before the end. But let's assume we have an organization that's adopted some of this, has some early successes now with automation. What path do I use to now try to scale that up? Is that more? I might think, is it depth? Do I keep going down that path and making that particular process better? Do I go breadth? Do I look for the next thing? Maybe that's not the right way to frame it up. I'm just curious where organizations might look for ideas on how to scale once they have success.
So in my experience, what organizations continue to look for changing business needs, right? I will give you an example. As we went through pandemic, I've seen that the increase of adoption of automation is 3 times to 4 times. The technology transformation is significantly high And I call it as every enterprise, the technology enterprise now. And the changing environment has helped organizations to reinvent, reignite the thinking of innovation and automation. I get a lot more queries to kind of scale the business leveraging automation today's world. The other important thing I see nowadays is that sustainability and making sure that enterprises leverage tech transformation, cloud adoption to impact sustainability parameters like green environment, impacting social responsibilities, having a sustainability measurements as an impact of due to automation is also one of the things that I observed today within the so changing needs of the business, staying relevant, sure that automation is not one-time activity and continuously re-looking at it and taking into account the needs of social responsibility, sustainability aspect, environmental impact, and tech transformation, helping organizations drive sustainability measurements is very, very.
I think we have one last one. We're running out of time here, but trying to get a little bit of clarification for this. I'm going to ask it the way it is now. It's might require some interpretation of what the term means. But, since you did just mention, I think, social responsibility organizations have responsibilities for the workforce. Question is, as organizations adopt automation, how does the leadership balance automation and workforce social economic responsibility?
It's a very important question. It's a I know that we have a very short time, but I'll very quickly say any technology change or technology improvement, technology evolution in the past help organizations to move forward with respect to creating more opportunities, with respect to creating social and economic impact in the society, creating more jobs, right? Automation is tightly coupled with advanced technologies, be it AI, be it data, be it DevSecOps, be it DevBizOps, be it DevTestOps, all of the DevOps aspects and CI/CD aspects. All of these create a lot of demand for expertise, talent, thereby generating employment opportunities, thereby generating economic opportunity for the society. So automation is fueling more opportunity. At the same time, as I said, sustainability measurements, be it green environment, creating social responsibility, impacting through reducing the number of transactions to maintain an application, thereby reducing carbon emission. All of that also very tightly coupled with benefits of automation. So I think automation can take enterprises a long way in impacting social responsibility in a very, very positive way. I think that's critical and that helps, that should be the way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Thank you for a great presentation and some really thoughtful answers to questions that have come in today. This has been a great hour. Like I said, a real pleasure for me to, through the Computer Society, be able to feature some of this great work that's going on out in the field and recognize it where we can. So thank you for that. And before we end, I'll just put in that last plug. As I said earlier, the Humphrey Award is one that gets examined every year as nominations come in. So I hope that some of the folks listening today might actually be inspired to tell us about their own successes, their own impacts, and we'll be back here again next to talk about the next one that we hear. Okay, so with that, thank you again, RP. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We enjoyed the give and take. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.